If you push narcissism to an extreme, it turns into, by entheodrama, it turns into humility. That's why we do all these shows to show off.
If you push
Narcissism to an extreme, there's the word entheodrama, where you push something to an extreme, it turns to the opposite.
Back to my idea of opposite extremes coincide.
Yeah, that's why if I can push narcissism to an extreme level, I can achieve the opposite. Right?
Instead of going directly.
So, I'm going to show off my reading of mysticism and symbolism as a way of developing. Are we showing this off or just doing it for the sake of mankind? I just happen to be reading, actually. It's just a random event. So this is just a random event that occurred in my reading. Evelyn Underhill's Mysticism. It was divinely decreed. In our study, we're going to read chapter 6 of Mysticism and Symbolism. It's a new chapter. In our study of theology, we saw the Christian mystic adopting, as chart and pilot book of his voyages and adventures, the scheme of faith and the diagram of the spiritual world, which is accepted by ordinary Christian men. We saw that he found in it a depth and a richness of content which the conventional believer in that theory, the good church man, seldom suspects, and that which is true of the Christian mystic is also true in its measure and regards their respective theologies and the pagan and the Mohammedan and the Buddhist. But since the spiritual adventures of the mystic are not those of ordinary men, it will follow that this map, though always true for him, is not complete. He can press forward to countries which unmystical piety must mark as unexplored, pushing out from harbor to the, quote, the vast stormy sea of the divine. He can take soundings and mark dangers, the existence of which such piety never needs to prove. Hence it is not strange that certain maps, artistic representations, or symbolic schemes should have come into being which describe or suggest the special experiences of the mystical consciousness and the doctrines to which these experiences have given birth. Many of these maps have an uncouth, even an unpious appearance in the eyes of those unacquainted with the facts which they attempt to translate, as the charts of the deep sea sailor seem ugly and unintelligible things to those who have never been out of sight of land. Others, and these the most pleasing and most easily understood, have already been made familiar, perhaps tiresomely familiar, to us by the poets, who intuitively, recognizing their suggestive qualities, their links with truth, have borrowed and adopted them to their own business of translating reality into terms of rhythm and speech. Ultimately, however, they owe their origin to the mystics, and to that mystical sense which is innate in all true poets. And in the last resort, it is the mystic's kingdom, and the mystic's experience which they affect to describe. These special mystical diagrams, these symbolic and artistic descriptions of man's inward history, his secret adventures with God, are almost endless in their variety, since in each we have a picture of the country of the soul seen through a different temperament. To describe all would be to analyze the whole field of mystical literature, and indeed much other literature as well, to epitomize, in fact, that has been dreamed and written concerning the so-called inner life. A dreary and a lengthy task. But the majority of them, I think, express a comparatively small number of essential doctrines or fundamental ways of seeing things, and as regards their imagery, they fall into three great classes. Here she categorizes. Now she's got three classes. Representative of the three principal ways in which man's spiritual consciousness reacts to the touch of reality. The three primary, if paradoxical facts of which that consciousness must be aware. Hence a consideration of mystical symbols drawn from each of these may give us a key with which to unlock some, at least, of the verbal riddles of the individual adventurer. Thanks to the spatial imagery inseparable from human thinking and human expression, no direct description of spiritual experience is or can be possible to man. It must always be symbolic, elusive, oblique, always suggest, but never tell the truth. And in this respect, there is not much to choose between the fluid and artistic language of vision and the arid technicalities of philosophy. In another respect, however, there is a great deal to choose between them, and here the visionary, not the philosopher, receives the palm. The greater the suggestive quality of the symbol used, the more answering emotion it evokes in those to whom it is addressed, the more truth it will convey. A good symbolism, therefore, will be more than mere diagram or mere allegory. It will use to the utmost the resources of beauty and passion, and will bring with it hints of mystery and wonder, bewitch with dreamy periods the mind to which it is addressed. Its appeal will not be to the clever mind, but to the desirous heart, the intuitive sense of man. The three great classes of symbols. Here we go with these numbers, which I propose to consider appeal to three deep cravings of the self, three great expressions of man's restlessness, which only mystic truth can fully satisfy. The first is the craving, which makes him a pilgrim and wanderer. Is that where I like to travel? You could be a traveling mystic. It is the longing to go out from his normal world in search of a lost home, a better country, a, quote, better country, an El Dorado, a Saros, Saras, S-A-R-A-R-A-S, a holy Sion, S-Y-O-N, Sion. The next is that craving of the heart for heart. She has her three classes of symbols. One's search for the lost home, the pilgrim, and the other one is the craving of heart for heart, of the soul for its perfect mate. Now you're looking for a mate, which makes him a lover. The third is the craving for inward purity and perfection, which makes him an ascetic, and in the last resort, a saint. So you follow the three classes here of symbols within description of mysticism. What are they? Quiz. What are the three symbols? Classes of symbols. The first one is the craving that makes him a pilgrim or wanderer, the search for the better country. The second is the craving of heart for heart, the search for his perfect mate. or lover. And the third is the craving for inward purity, perfection, which makes him an ascetic and in last resort a saint. Those are the three methodologies. These three cravings, I think, answer to three ways in which mystics of different temperaments. You have different personalities within mysticism. Different temperaments attack the problem of the absolute. Three different formulae under which the transcendence of the sense world can be described. In describing this transcendence and the special adventures involved in it, they are describing a change from the state of ordinary man, in touch with the sense world, responding to its rhythms, to the state of spiritual consciousness in which they are, quote, in union, unquote, with divine reality, with God. Whatever be the theological creed of the mystic, he never varies in declaring this close, definite, and actual intimacy to be the end of his quest. Quote, mark me like the tulip with thine own strakes, quote, unquote, says the Sufi. Quote, I will fain be to the eternal goodness what his hand is to a man, unquote, says the German contemplative. Quote, me is God, nor do I know my selfhood save in him, unquote, says the Italian saint. Seems we have a lot of viewpoints. But since this absolute God is for him substance, ground, and underlying reality of all that is, present yet absent, near yet far, he is already truly eminent in the human soul as in the universe. The seeker for the real may therefore objectify his quest in two apparently contradictory, yet really mutually explanatory ways. First, he may see it as an outgoing journey from the world of illusion to the real or transcendental world, a leaving of the visible for the invisible. Secondly, it may appear to him as an inward alteration, remaking or regeneration by which his personality or character is so changed as to be able to enter into communion with the frontal being, fontal, Fontal being, which he loves and desires, is united with and dominated by the indwelling God, who is the font of his spiritual life. In the first case, the objective idea, God is the pivot of his symbolism, the blazing star, the magnet of the universe, which he has seen far off and seeing has worshipped and desired. In the second case, the emphasis falls on the subjective idea, sanctity, with its accompanying consciousness of the disharmony to be abolished. The mystic way will then be described not as a journey, but as an alteration of personality, the transmuting of heavenly and earthly into heavenly man. Plainly, these two aspects are a verse and reverse of one whole. They represent the mighty pair of opposites, infinite and finite God and self, which is the business of mysticism to carry up into higher synthesis. We're reading from the chapter on Mysticism and Symbolism.